This is the Onkino residence from Studio Ghibli's Kiki's Delivery Service, released in 1989. And I'm gonna break Minecraft to build it. I love creating detailed and out-of-the-box builds in this game, and I've historically used mods like Chisel and Bits to do so. But today I want to push the boundaries of Minecraft building and myself to make a detailed build that's 100% vanilla. How, you might ask? Well, in version 1.19.4, Minecraft added block, text, and item displays to the game, or what we now know as display entities. These are projections that take no damage and have no collision, but they can be stretched and moved beyond the limits of a normal block. Upon release, it was tedious to use them as they are summoned and moved through commands. But everything changed when Axiom released a display editing tool allowing for users to create and manipulate display entities with ease. This has ushered in a strange and niche kind of Minecraft building, which I've tried a little, but today I want to fully explore. Luckily, I've got the perfect reference. If you haven't seen Kiki's Delivery Service, I'd recommend it, but it's not necessary viewing for this video. In fact, this house only appears in like the first 6 minutes of the film, but it stays with audiences for one sole reason: comfort. It's got lush gardens, a beautiful sunroom, and embodies a life full of idealistic love and childhood affection. According to Studio Ghibli Architecture and Animation, the house is designed after a variety of European styles, a blend of the British countryside and Swedish cottages. My hope is my minor experience with the subject and style will bring some familiarity to this challenge. Which reminds me, there's only one official rule. While I can use mods like Axiom, shaders, and Flashback, at the end of this video, everything must be loadable on a fresh install of vanilla Minecraft. That also means I won't be using the addition of any data or resource packs. With that rule in mind, let's start by examining our reference. The Onkino residence, as mentioned previously, is only in the exposition, leaving us without much material. The majority of the background art depicts her mother's shop and Kiki's bedroom. Still, I went through each frame, mapping out the layout as best I could, but I hit a roadblock when I noticed 2 different staircases and then ran out of footage. Okay, so my next venture was into the numerous publications surrounding the creation of Ghibli works. I checked this book, and this book, and this book, and found nothing new. So what exactly does that mean? Do I have complete creative freedom? Am I doomed to design the interior of a home while confined to its exterior aesthetic? Nope. If you don't know, there's a real-life rendition of the Onkino residence, built in Studio Ghibli's own park and designed by the studio itself. This is even better if you ask me. Now I can just look at the real— Oh, great. Alright, I'll do this the hard way. I scoured the internet for any cheeky glimpses into the interior of this home, finding these 2 photos alongside a written description of a record player and a study for Kiki's father. I thought I was at a dead end until, while looking at the same photo of the shop interior, I spotted an old record player. Without that written description, I genuinely wouldn't have thought much of this, but after taking this image and putting it into Google search, I was able to find so much more. I found photos of a parlor, a second living room, kitchen, dining room, and the entryway. They are great references, but now I'm really perplexed by the layout of this home. As a last-ditch effort, I searched for information on the park's construction, and just before I gave up, pickaxe in hand, I struck diamonds. I discovered a 2-volume, 13-hour documentary. There had to be footage of the house here, right? I eagerly searched where I could watch it and discovered it's not available for digital streaming and only sold in Japan. You might be wondering why I care so much, why I don't just fudge the inside or choose another reference, but I was at a point of obsessive, greedy curiosity, and truthfully, I wanted to know this house, what made it the way it was from the inside out. And so, I decided to purchase both sets of DVDs and patiently awaited their arrival. While we wait, here's IRL Me. If you're a regular here on the Snifferish channel, then you might know that last year I got a concussion. I was pretty open about it, but what I didn't mention was how hard it was to receive care for it. After my initial diagnosis, I was told to check in with a doctor after 3 to 6 weeks, but my primary wasn't available for months. I checked in with several offices, but after a couple hours of calling and just being told that they either didn't take my insurance or they didn't have availability, I kinda gave up. I've seen someone now, but it was well after those 6 weeks. I bring this up because I know it's not an uncommon experience. There are a lot of strange barriers to finding doctors, especially if you're new to an area, are seeking a specialist, or are looking for quick care. Which is why I'm happy to introduce the sponsor of today's video, ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free website that can help you find and book appointments with doctors local to your area. They have over 150,000 providers across all 50 states, with a vast range of specialties from dentists to PCPs to therapists and so much more. With ZocDoc, you can really tailor your search and build the care team you need. You can see right away if they're available, if they take your insurance, and look at patient-verified reviews to see what your potential doctor is like. If you want to see your doctor in person, awesome. If you would prefer a video visit, you can do that too. Appointments made through ZocDoc can happen quickly, even within 24 to 72 hours or the same day. Finding a doctor doesn't have to be as hard or time-consuming. You can use the link in my description or the QR code to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor with ZocDoc today. A week had passed when I received the second volume. Beyond excited, I set up my PS3 for video playback and... Huh? Did you know that discs have different region codes? I sure didn't. It took some workshopping between some software and an old CD burner, but I finally watched the documentary. And oh my gosh, guys, this was 100% worth it. Not only did I get a full tour of the interior of the house, that I probably can't show you, I learned a lot about the design choices. Hayao Miyazaki, who led the design of the park, was super meticulous about every aspect in a truly admirable way. I got to see the kitchen and living room and even the study that was mentioned on the website. Using all of this footage, I was able to piece together my understanding of this house. And then I realized this might not work either. While the recreation is gorgeous, it's also for a park, meaning its architecture is focused on accessibility and movement. Hallways will be wider, there will be more entrances and exits than normal, and utility spaces for employees. These changes are good, so that all guests can enjoy the park, but its functionality is different, so I'm going to tweak the interior for my final draft, leaving me with this. Whew, now that that's done, let's get to what you've all been waiting for, the building. Starting off with our landscape, I created a plains-only world and flattened out a large area. As mentioned before, the world of Kiki's delivery service has a lot of European influence. And I wanted to go for the gentle rolling hills of the British countryside. Unlike the British countryside though, Kiki's house is surrounded by trees, specifically birch. To keep it clean, I swapped over to a blank world to try my hand at custom trees. Like many builders, I dread constructing trees. They are notoriously difficult and easy to get wrong. But I figured since this was a challenge and I was already out of my comfort zone, I might as well do it. In the end, I built 20 total. Once I was satisfied with the fluff of their leaves, I moved back to my terrain. Using the stamping tool from Axiom, I loaded up each tree in order to get this absolutely magical brush. The hard part about dense forests in Minecraft is that little to no light reaches the floor, since it doesn't permeate through leaves the same way it does in real life. To combat this, I played around with different levels of density and carved out a little grotto. Once the house is built, I'll draw the forest in, but for now, it's time to create our footprint. Using random wool colors, I tried to establish the layout I worked so hard to get. The scale was the biggest hurdle. A lot of Minecrafters upscale their builds in relation to the player to achieve greater levels of detail. Even I do this a little. I mean, an average ceiling height is around 8 to 10 feet, which is around 3 blocks. But I think we can all agree many people prefer it to be a bit taller than that. Also, you don't really come across many homes with walls a meter thick. With that said, I try really hard to condense my builds. To me, it just makes them feel cozier and more realistic. Maybe not from a distance, but from the perspective of someone walking around them. This usually comes at the cost of detail, but I hope the display entities can make up for that. Eventually, I just started building a little so I could also look at the proportions from a three-dimensional perspective, seeing how the stairs will connect to the second floor and how the roof will align. Once I was satisfied, I filled in the walls and parts of the roof, but I could tell it was time for those display entity details and I was anxious. Trying new things and challenges always comes with the risk that it's just bad. But I decided to follow in Kiki's steps and take off regardless. I dove right in, starting with the little porch that hugs the front door. I mentioned before that display entities have no collision, which does impact how I choose to use them. While you could theoretically build an entire house out of them, and people have, I wanted something in between. This way there's collision, familiarity, and I don't blow up my PC with 3 gazillion entities. So we're starting with regular blocks, then layering the display entities on one by one. As a personal rule, I tried to avoid using the stretching tool. Although it gave me more options for shapes, I wanted the textures to remain a similar size for congruency. The nice thing about display entities though is you can group and combine them, which makes them easier to move and copy. After I got most of the porch done, I worked on the sign for Kokiri's shop and the window by the door. The last detail is the bell. You would think that this would be easy since Minecraft already has a bell, but for some reason its model wasn't working and I had to make my own. Completing this section definitely put my worries at ease. While it was no detailed chisel and bit build, it felt special. For parts of the roof, I decided to try using the new shelf models. The divided sections reminded me of clay tiles, and it was easy to blend them into real blocks. I slowly pivoted my attention to the left, creating those little dormer windows and beginning to add some greenery on the roof. But I quickly got overwhelmed deciding how I wanted to do that and opted to work on the sunroom windows instead. For collision purposes, I built around glass panes, combining buttons and fences to create a white frame to sit on top. Then I copied the entity over and reassembled it at a slant so it looked propped open just like it is in the movie. Because I can never stay on task, I did try my hand at the vegetation again, this time thinking about how it will spill off the edge of the roof. At first, I tried using the item models for ferns, but I thought they looked kind of ugly, so I pivoted to cave vines and I loved it so much more. It matched the moss blocks perfectly and the texture fit in much better. Before I get too carried away, I gotta get back on track with the windows. The window leading to the salon is the largest and probably the strangest. It has that cottage cross-hatching I love so much, but I wasn't sure how to make it. At first, I tried iron bars, but that just looked like a prison. So I took 2 candles, smooshed them together, and built my cross hatches out of that. It's not perfect, but I do like it. This also gave me the idea to create lattices with brown candles, and once again, I drove off course as I worked on the large flower bush that clings to the house. It crept up the face, slowly transforming into a thick vegetation that covered the entire roof. Honestly, I know people have opinions on stuff like this. When I do overgrown projects, I'm often told it looks like block vomit. But my honest question is, have you ever seen an overgrown house? Have you ever lived in one? Nature doesn't take over in a neat, linear way. It's disgustingly messy. I personally grew up in an older, wooden home with a vine of silver lace that was rooted into the siding. It stretched from the ground to the roof, covering the windows of my childhood bedroom. Sometimes, if left unmaintained, it would pop the window screens and grow inside. It became a yearly ritual to fight it and tear it from the side of the house, and every year it came back larger. It was a beautiful green blight, reminiscent of the tree line vomiting on my home. You could say Kiki and I have that in common. Her room sits right here, and just like the movie, I intend to have her windows unlatched and wide open for nature to creep in. I took the sunroom windows and restructured them into 2 separate pieces. During this process, I decided to swap the glass color of every window in the house. This blue glass had a cartoonish effect while also creating more contrast between the panes and the frames. Now, I went full in on the overgrowth. I layered cave vines, lichen, and flowers. I used bushes to create an overhang on the top of the roof, making it the disorder it needed to be. I can't say I'm a demanding person about things I want added or changed in Minecraft, but I do think that if this project made me wish for anything, it was some kind of green block that has slabs or stairs. The closest I could get was the mossy cob, and even then I kinda didn't like it. So as an actual question for this video, I would like to know, what kind of blocks would you add to this game? As I moved on, I made a few more windows while continuing to wrap the house in plants. Slowly, my building grew lazier, and I could feel that creeping agitation that comes from working on something for too long. I nearly passed the 20-hour mark and felt disappointment in my progress. However, I didn't have the time to take a break, so instead I cleared up the area and decided to work on the landscape for a breath of fresh air. The scenery around the Okino residence is just as important as the house itself, and truly, it's beautiful. It's a garden for her mother's work and clearly cared for. I wanted to capture the subtle changes in elevation that are presented in this shot, so I built the path up and down and created small mounds for the floor to sit upon. For just the landscape, I decided not to use display entities at all. By now, I could feel the performance impact they were having on my computer, and I wanted to save that cost for the interior of the home. Similarly to the trees, it's been a while since I've done this. I used to do vanilla building professionally, but it was years ago before 1.15, and sometimes in these older versions, I feel a little unk. The Minecraft building community has been growing as rapid and vibrant as the garden before you. I sometimes feel a little out of place or left behind, but I think everyone kind of feels like that. Okay, wait, actually, a little bit of spoilers for Kiki's delivery service. This film is so personal, I've never felt like any amount of description spoils the experience, but if you want to skip to here, great. Kiki's delivery service has a primary theme of creative burnout, and it handles this in its protagonist well, but what I really love about it is the connection it makes between burnout and community. Everyone Kiki meets is also working on something and going through their own challenges, yet never once in the film is this brought up negatively. In every interaction, characters are trying to create space for one another. They solve their problems best when they aren't creating unnecessary friction by comparing and competing. That's not to say competition is bad, or that we can't compare for the sake of empathy. However, I think when we enter a community too focused on our individual placement, we lose sight of how it works in the first place. The bar of entry is not about individual talent or skills, but the willingness to engage positively yet critically, to challenge with the intent of prompting growth instead of establishing hierarchy. And with that said, I'm still a little unk, but I think a title like that just means I have stuff to learn and stuff to teach. Speaking of, this garden is painterly, using blocks for their texture as opposed to their material, a technique I've mostly learned from the Japanese Minecraft building community, and one that as a traditional painter, I really adore. After building the backyard and the little garage, I felt like something was missing. When I looked at my reference photo, I realized I needed some of those smaller shrub trees to help transition the tree line. So I popped back into my blank world to cook some up. These were a bit difficult to place, but once I sprinkled them around, I entered the home stretch of my landscaping. I know from a distance it looks chaotic, but the experience of walking around it is what I wanted to focus on. Which reminds me, you can walk around this build yourself. It will be up for early access on my Patreon, but after that, anyone can download it. I know times are tough right now, last year was absolutely terrible for me, so honestly the best support you guys can give is simply subscribing and sharing this video with someone who might like it. And to those who do support me financially on Patreon, thank you so much. After a couple days of landscaping, I was ready to return to the house. And now I'm working inside. The Okino residence has a strong identity in its interior, and I struggled to decide what aspects to capture in my limited and abstract medium. The primary thing that stood out to me was the wallpaper that graced almost every room. It was outdated, busy, colorful, and exactly what I would expect. While I knew I couldn't replicate it perfectly, I wanted to try. I flattened blocks and laid them carefully on one another, alternating stripes and patterns. The room I'm working on, the parlor, has green trim, and as I mentioned before, I'm a little limited on green blocks, so I settled for warped wood. I didn't hate it, like it's a little ugly, but it gives me the same feeling as an old doll house. This was kinda working, and I was enjoying the process, so I moved on to the little entry hall. Little did I know, I was secretly giving my GPU an asthma attack. While working on the hallway, I thought I'd check my FPS, and I noticed my average frames had been sliced in half. Maybe the wallpapering wasn't the best idea, but I didn't want to let it go. I decided then and there I would only do it for one more room. Kiki's bedroom. This just felt essential to me, special even, and I took my time trying to get the floral details. I was a little annoyed I ruled out resource packs since it probably solved this problem, but I wanted to stay true to the challenge. Kiki's bedroom has a strange shape, which made it difficult to wallpaper, but I got through it and even made a large door to sit wide open. We'll return here soon, but for now, let's furnish the downstairs. Back to the salon parlor thing, I tried my hand at a fancy couch and made the telephone that sits in the corner. Then I had a sort of I could do better moment and redid the whole thing, this time adding little pillows and building curtains. One thing I would have never thought of if I didn't watch the documentary was the wood stove in the corner. I'd never seen anything like it before. It's of Swedish design and only manufactured there. So much of the interior home takes inspiration from Swedish decor, and I can't help but giggle at the circle of culture that already ties together Kiki's delivery service and Minecraft. The next space is the hallway that connects the entire house. I wanted to keep this as minimal as possible, saving the details for the spaces that need it the most. The exception being the stairs. A simple railing already made this space feel custom, and honestly, the stairs look weird without them. I'm still on my limited entity rule, but I was curious what I could do with just one wall in this kitchen. This section is most changed from the reference, giving Kiki's family a bit more space to cook and eat. However, I still wanted to capture the vibes, so I kept materials and colors the same. Once I brought it back to the house, I added in some real blocks and built that vintage stove they featured in the park. By the time I started on the dining room, there was a rhythm to this project. I didn't hate the interior, but it was unexpected. It's different from my modded builds, but in its abstraction, I found something whimsical and uncanny like a dream. Side note, if you want to see a hyper-detailed modded build, I'd recommend this video. It's honestly one of my favorites. After I completed the furniture here, something still felt off. I realized the contrast between the red, yellow, and blue was essential to this room, so I decided to break my wallpaper rule just once more. You won't tell anyone, right? Last, I topped the space off with a hanging lamp and we were officially done with the eatery. Okay, maybe I wasn't doing a great job of keeping this build optimized, so I vowed to myself that after I made just one more window, from here on out, no more display entities until I got to Kiki's bedroom and the witch's shop. I hope you guys can forgive me. I really did want to give each space my all, but I also wanted it to be accessible. Alright then, let's speedrun this. You probably don't know this, I didn't until I watched the documentary, but Kiki's father studies witches. The addition of his study was to create a narrative around the type of person he is. Someone messy, curious, and deeply in love with the craft of his wife and daughter. It's really cute, and I'm glad they added it. At last, it's time for arguably the best two rooms in the house. Let's do Kiki's bedroom first. This room is given a lot of time and attention in the film as an introduction to our main character and her life. For functionality, I built around a real Minecraft bed, layering the white bed frame and colorful quilt around it. Beside that is a table with clutter and a lamp, which I built out of candles and a lightning rod. Across the room, Kiki has a standing bureau, which I left purely vanilla to focus on the desk instead. I tried my best to add the small details, but by now, even in my second favorite place, I could feel my patience melting away. And yet, I kept at it. Eventually moving on to the final room, the witch's shop. To me, saving this for last was like saving the best bite of a sandwich. In every depiction of the Okino residence, this room has always stuck out to me as the most comforting. In the film, there's an essential conversation around the motivation, spirit, and magic behind one's craft. The main reason I chose the Okino residence is because it aligns with my motivation. Content creation for me is about comfort, literally creating spaces for people to relax. I know I'm perceived as the cozy cottagecore Minecraft builder, even amongst my peers. However, I think we do a disservice boiling down comfort to mere aesthetics. It means to ease or relax pain and distress, and the labor for this is more subtle than we think. There's the physical treatments, like the potions Kokiri makes for the elderly, and the intangible ones. In the film, they are baked into Kiki's environment and relationship with her parents. They encourage her to go out, try something new, and even fail. They prepare her to face discomfort and handle it. I have never built like this before. Truthfully, I feel lost and out of my element, unsure what I even think of the outcome. These feelings originate from expectations, many of which are asserted through social media and content creation. That discomfort is what motivates me. I want to brew a potion that makes it go away. To let you know that comfort is not a room with pretty wallpaper, but a place where the only expectation is that you are human. And I guess today, that's a weird-ass Minecraft build. Okay, time for the final reveal. But first, did you know that at the park, you can ask the employees to swap the records in that small parlor? I don't have a record player in that style, but I do have one. So I tracked down the two vinyls in this image, and I hope that while you look at this, you'll enjoy one of the same songs listened to by Kiki's family.
Boom, boom, boom.
Lollipop, lollipop, oh, lolly, 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 lollipop, lollipop, oh, lolly, 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 lollipop, lollipop, oh, lolly, 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 lollipop.
Boom, boom, boom.
Oh, my baby lollipop, tell you why. His kiss is sweeter than an apple pie. And when he does a shaky rock and dance, man, I haven't got a chance. I call him lollipop.
I'd love to know what you guys think. Of course, I'm open to constructive critique. In a way, this build reminds me of the first oil painting I ever did, which my art teacher had confined me to a limited palette. As frustrating and tedious as limits are, they are a great way to learn. And in the end, I stayed true. This is 100% vanilla. Oh wait, I guess I should test that. Funny enough, I actually like how it looks without shaders. What do you guys think? I imagine with practice, I could get pretty good at turning abstract Minecraft blocks into cool things. Howl's Moving Castle, anybody? Anyone? I would like to thank my patrons for helping make this video possible. When I couldn't decide what to build this month, I actually held a vote, and this was voted on by them. On the topic of builds and downloads too, display entities are Java edition only, but I know I have some Bedrock users, so I'll try to touch up the build and come up with a Bedrock survival-friendly edition, when I have the time. In the meantime, remember to take care of yourself, the people around you, and the spaces you occupy. Cheers, guys.
A lollipop.